while we give you advice and tips on business matters and matters of the heart for busy executives. And now, Katrina and Edward. Hello, hello, hello. This is Katrina Brittingham, your business consultant and Doctor the Real Deal Love, your love coach.
Hello, hello, hello.
So we are entering in our seventh season and our third season together, Dr. Love. Can you believe it?
Wow, wow. Can you imagine that? Back to school, back to work, back to business.
Back to business. Back to
Yes, indeedy.
business. Back to the basics.
Yes, indeedy. Yes, back to love. I love it. Back to the basics, back to love. Yes, indeedy. And it's
Yes.
time.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Although I would say when I gave myself this vacation, I was like, oh, it's just going to be so much time, but it flew by. And next thing I knew, I was like, wait a minute, I only have 2 weeks left. So,
9/11, here it is.
yes. But it's all good because you do need to have a break. Having that balance, work-life balance,
Hmm.
really makes a difference. As you can see, I'm nice and refreshed. Um,
Yes, yes. Yeah, you look good too. That's a great thing.
Thank you. So we are going to talk about another change that has been happening over the summer and also uh, in the fall that has been happening, and it is adjusting to the hybrid workplace. Even if you are a small business entrepreneur, you may be squeezing your way or squeaking your way out into the office, whether it is 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. There are all kinds of um, combinations of it. But however you work it, however you want to have it for your business, however you wanted to have it for yourself, whether you do a rental office or lease an office or have that shared workspace, or whether you are working like myself as a consultant for a company, however you want to work that, um, there are ways for you to be successful. I know that it is a challenge after you have been remote. Like myself, it would be a shock to my system to suddenly go back into corporate. We have learned that um, working from home, we have flexibility, and some of us just talk loud, and you can do so when you're in your home. But once you come back into the office, it's a whole doing that.
Hmm.
So having that time in the workforce. Um, Again, we talk about business, we talk to employees, we talk to executives on how to successfully do that. Um, I my personal thing is, still having that flexibility, but working with people. So if you had people who were 100% remote even before COVID, bringing them in the office is going to really trip them out because they were hired as 100% remote, regardless of COVID. With that, you will have some, uh, what do they call it? I can't think of the name, but you will have some people who are leaving. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
They called it the Great Migration when, COVID happened and they first started going to the office, or Great Resignation. But you will have people who resign after that because they liked working remote, and there are still remote jobs out there. So that's one thing to consider when you are an employer and you go hybrid, that you may have some people who are leaving to stay 100% remote, or even if they came after COVID, they want to come 100% remote. But with the shock and everything, because people adjusted their lives over this 3 year period, some people were homeschooling their kids and everything because they did not want them to go back to regular school for whatever reasons. You know, everyone has their personal thing, so now they have to go into the office. So now they may have to consider putting their children in school. So even if you come, like say in uh, June or July, for this person child to get into school, it may take a little bit longer because you have applications for charter schools, private schools, and even public schools may already be filled with the people from the year before. So these are some things to kind of consider when you're doing that. So if you have people who have these circumstances, you might want to have maybe like an exception form or exception process to review people's situations individually, because
Hmm.
it might not be so easy for them to change their lives back to going to school. Um, for that and transportation and all kinds of stuff. Because I know most big companies may offer, um, childcare and stuff like that at a discounted rate. So now they have childcare that they hadn't have to worry about before, transportation for their children and stuff like that. Um,
You know,
and
another
when,
thing
go
I
ahead.
thought was interesting. Um, there are people who, because of their working remote and at home, they were able to pick up a second job. So the income now, some of them are making like two paychecks because they're able to work so efficiently from home. Going back in, they would have to lose one of their incomes. So I know people who are actually doing two jobs.
That's true, but when it comes to corporate, especially if it was your main job, um, basically there's something in a contract that you can work the second job as long as it doesn't interfere with the first. So,
Hmm.
you know, that can be a little tricky because
Hmm.
especially if that was your main source of income, it'll be like, well, now this job is interfering, um, and everything like that. So they wouldn't the workplace, depending on how big the workplace is and what their procedures is, it would just be like, well, we were your priority. So
Hmm.
you have to
Hmm.
be careful with that. Um, that wouldn't be a way to have an exception because they wouldn't consider that um, a valid form of an exception.
Hmm.
Um, so you kind of have to stick with the second part, but that is something for a worker to consider that will cause them to find something else as their main source, to remain remote so they can pick up what they had part time.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's that gets tricky, but it's a good point. Especially in a time now where everything is going up. Like my grocery bill has doubled, even from last month. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Um, but so you want to kind of strike that balance, before from hybrid, fully remote, and in-person work. Okay. So it involves, as I was saying, given the story, more than just issuing a mandate outlining your organization's policies. All right. There is no recipe for making um, the hybrid work. Um, because it's such a sensitive thing. So there are four principles that form a prerequisite for having a successful hybrid working environment. And this affects large companies as well as small companies. Because again, you had a lot of people who were workers or contractors who were working 100% remote. And with this push to come into the office, it can affect your business in a way that you were not expecting. So you want to be sensitive to the needs of your workers. Um, the only time I would say, okay, yeah, pull them in the office is if they weren't pulling their weight when they were home, okay, or not putting in the same quality of work as they were, then yeah, that might be something that you have a conversation about, to bring them in the office, to make sure that you have that balance. And some people, it was a shock on the other end going remote, and they didn't enjoy it, or to their own admission, they were easily distracted. So being in the office, it puts in their mindset, okay, I'm at work. So these are the conversations that you need to have. Okay. So there are four pillars. One is development. One is purpose. Um, One is team working models, and one is uh, inclusivity. Okay, so we are going to go through those hopefully, in the time for this broadcast. So companies do continue to offer perks like indoor and outdoor work areas, wellness solutions, high end facilities for fitness. Some companies do have a gym on site. I used to work at a company that had a gym on site and it was wonderful. Um, I lost like 80 pounds doing that and everything because I could go on my lunch break. So I no longer kind of had an excuse like get home, I'm too tired, or in the morning, oh, that's too early. I just can't make it. I would take my lunch break and I would work out, and it worked out for me. So those are some perks for you going back in the office if you want to. A big downside for people is the commute. Gas is $1 million a gallon, or it seems like it at this time. So that is an expense that people have grown accustomed to not having because um, I can make my gas tank last for longer than I ever thought I could, because I'm not moving it as much.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm just going to work. And some people shaved off an hour, 2 hours, an hour and a half commute. And this is the commute without having an accident on the road, and everything. And how people started to see how um, this added to the quality of their day. So you're gaining back at least 2 hours a day, or 4 hours a day just on your commute. Okay, or more, because some people were taking a train, and sometimes it takes longer than that to get back and forth to work. So without having that hassle, you came in the morning, you signed on, got dressed, maybe had been business on the top, party on the bottom, and everything like that. But you went to work, and when you signed off of your computer, you were already home. That's a big deal because you can immediately start working, not having that road rage situation going on. I know for myself, commuting, was an ordeal for a lot of the companies that I worked at because I was traveling at least an hour going in, and that's like again if traffic was good, but if it was raining, if it was snowing, that puts more on that commute and everything like that. I used to travel to a place where um, it was no water, but every time it rained, like we weren't near a river or anything, but every time it rained, the road would flood out, the exit would flood out. So those kind of things, you can mess your car up. They always say don't run over the water because you never know how deep it is. And actually seen people's cars start floating.
Hmm.
So those are the things that people have to consider. So are your perks commute worthy? Are you, am I like, okay, I'll take this commute to get this perk that's in the office? Um, that's something for people to do. So, um, one of the things that you need to focus on rather than what days of the week people return to the office, instead provide employees clarity on a type of workplace experience that best aligns with their specific role and career progression. I cannot speak. Um, so um, you have to consider things like a lot of companies are now having hotel space where you don't have a set desk, but you have to select the place that you want to that's available. Um, so is that the most? convenient and elaborate? How is your space? Is it open space? What type of work are they doing? Are they working um, for you, but maybe for a client of yours? What type of work are they doing? Do they have um, security issues, PHI? Do they have a lot of meetings versus are they in a place where they're doing like production during the day? So they're not in meetings, they're the production staff. These are the things that need to be considered. And when you combine people who are having a whole bunch of meetings during the day that can't sit and clog your conference room up all day because there's other people who are having meetings throughout the day, how is that going to mishmash with the people who are doing production? These are the things that you need to consider when you are bringing um, people back into the office because it does make a difference. Like I said earlier, case in point, I work for a client as a consultant, and I didn't even consider how loud, I am because I'm in my own office, home office, set up for this. And I had a colleague of mine who went back to the office and they were like, somebody came to them and was like, you forgot your cubicle voice, huh? And then I thought about it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, how loud am I? Because I don't really pay attention because I'm not bothering anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my home office. And so little things like that makes a difference and can affect the quality of work of people around you. So do you have quiet spaces where the people who do that can do those types of things as far as the production where they can be quiet and maybe an area where people who have a lot of meetings and have learned to use their volume at a different level
Mm-hmm.
can
Your
do it
inside
because
voice.
yes, because now if you're whispering and you have a client that you're not on site for, but you're at the office location, now they're like, I can't hear you, you're talking too low. So it's just a different situation altogether. So those are the things that you need to consider too, the quality of work. Um, so right now, the global workforce suggests about 65%, a 65% hybrid plan or a mix of remote and office work. This is to go with trying to be a little more flexible. Some people do like working from home. Some people like the combination, like they like want to collaborate and network to grow within the company. Um, some people just like um, to be remote. So it's just have to consider those things, okay? Um, you have people who are living in multi-generational households where working from home is not an ideal environment. Again, some people have balanced that out. Like, well, I'm in my office and I'm doing my work, and my kid is in their room at their desk doing their schoolwork, and it works great. So they may have lunch with their kids, talk to their kids, and everything like that. After they get off of work and their kid gets off of school. Um, so some families are better at balancing that than others. Some of them, and you have to consider the age. They might have toddlers running around. It might not be as conducive as we learned with COVID and having kids, they came walking in, peeking in the screen. Hey, who's that?
Mm-hmm.
So you had some people who were happy to go back to
Mm-hmm.
work. So, um, you know, uh, there it is. You have attrition. I was trying to think of that word. So you have the natural attrition. So you have the fact that that has decreased by 5%, where you had people who were happy being remote and they left and they found remote jobs. Like for the first time, I think in history, businesses realized that the true power of having your business is your employees and their happiness, and they can affect your business if they decide in a um, in mass that they want to leave. Okay, so It's like, okay, like nobody's coming to work or people are leaving or this, that, and the third. Whereas historically it has been kind of the other way around, like, oh, you need a job. But people are more at the case of, yes, I need a job, but I don't have to necessarily work here.
Hmm.
Okay. So employees started to learn what their real power superpower was when it came to this. So that's something to um, consider. Um, we do have that in this time frame. We have a reduced uh, decrease of attrition by 5%. Um, but that is small, like, but then you have um, hoteling at 20%. So you do have more people who want to come into the office, um, which is bigger than it has been since we started coming back to the office for COVID. But you still have more people who are leaving because the decrease was only 5%. That's a pretty low number. So that means you have more people leaving for various reasons. So when you are considering hybrid work, you have to think about what is going to provide workplace flexibility, because other companies are using this as a competitive advantage to um, gain talent and retain it. So that's something to um, consider. So then we have inclusivity. It is possible to discuss hybrid and remote work without addressing inclusivity. All workers must operate on a level playing field, regardless of whether you're working in person, fully remote, or hybrid. What that means is if I'm working and I'm working hard, we should be at a level playing field. And if I am fully remote and say I'm on the same team and I'm a top player, I should be able to get the bonuses or the raises or um, the promotions, not the
Hmm.
one that just happens to be in someone's face, or full time, or somebody who's hybrid and is in the office um you know 3 days out of the week. Okay, so you have to make sure that there is not a proximity bias, like just because I'm in your face, am I a quality worker? That's what we need to
Hmm.
look at. Is your quality worker um in a remote position? Okay. Um, and again, you consider it with the type of work, because some work you may have to be face to face, but we have learned through COVID that some things that we consider traditionally face to face, you don't have to be face to face for. So that's a consideration as well when you're having that mixture of a hybrid workplace, um, which includes in-person remote work and hybrid, which is the hybrid is part-time. And because I have to be clear on this, you have a hybrid workplace where you have those three options, but then you have a hybrid position where you're part-time in the office and part-time at home. So um, you have to speak to your managers about that, um, because sometimes there is a bias where they feel like the people who work from home is not working as hard, but are the numbers saying that, like,
Hmm.
are they exceeding the goals, and everything, and you have a worker who may be an average or mediocre worker, but because they're in front of your face, now they're
Hmm.
getting the rewards of that. All right, so I cannot believe it. We do actually have a minute left in the half an hour. We transitioned into the half an hours coming in. So we are going to do we're actually not going to do a break. We're actually going to end. I have to monitor it because now I have to adjust and everything like that for the program. But we will come back next week. We will have another topic for us. If you want to know more about a hybrid workplace, I do um, um, recommend that number one, you talk to your employees, you do surveys, but you also do research um, on how to develop your people, how to make sure that they have the perks of the company, that they're able to move up within the company, and everything like that, and that you don't have the bias that comes with working with a hybrid workforce. So thank you for joining us back. Apparently, I still have to adjust myself because my tongue is still on vacation. So I
Hmm.
will see you.
Getting back
I
in the
will
swing
see
of
you.
things.
Yes. I will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Bye bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of High Tea with Me. To be a sponsor or a guest, contact us at info@ventureready.net. Thank you again, and we'll